A lot of people, a lot of security officials who I have spoken to have said that they won't use the word unprecedented, but they are careful and they are cautious and they are concerned, deeply concerned at the deep intelligence that they have at this juncture, which points to something very, very insidious.
It's this intelligence advisory that spells out the major security threat across large parts of North India ahead of the festive season this year. The intelligence received is specific and worrying. The Prime Minister, Home Minister and the National Security Advisor have been specifically targeted. The threat letter was intercepted by the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. The letter says terrorists will take revenge for the abrogation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. 30 major cities including Jammu, Pathankot, Amritsar, Jaipur, Gandhinagar, Kanpur and Lucknow are being targeted. The airports at Srinagar, Jammu, Amritsar and Agra have been specifically named. The attacks are meant to take place this month. Army sources have told us that as many as 500 Pakistan-trained terrorists are either at launch pads just across the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir or in terror training facilities like Balakot, which have been recently reactivated. As many as 60 terrorists may have crossed into India in the last 2 months.
उसका मुकाबला करने की, उसको डिफीट देने की ताकत हमारे फोर्स के जवानों में है, चाहे वो आर्मी हो, नेवल हो अथवा हमारी एयर फोर्स. Don't worry, our force is fully prepared.
The multi-agency center receives inputs from various intelligence agencies. Now it has shared this information with various cities and states. And the threat level has been assigned to an orange category, which is a step ahead than a red alert. In New Delhi, this is Neeta Sharma reporting for NDTV.
Indian Air Force sources have confirmed that there is a serious security threat to frontline bases of the Indian Air Force. Now, what exactly are some of these bases? Well, let's bring up the map, give you some details. Srinagar, Avantipura, Jammu, Pathankot and Hindon Air Force bases are on what is called an orange alert. Let's bring up the map to give you an idea of all of those bases, all frontline bases in the north and the west of the country on a high alert. So what is an orange alert? An orange alert is the second highest state of alert. Beyond that is, of course, the red alert. Then schools in the area would need to be shut down. Not so far. Now, the Punjab police have also said that terrorists have been using drones to deliver weapons to Khalistani terrorists. They say that there have been 8 sorties of these small drones carried out in approximately 10 days. AK-47s and satellite phones have been transferred. The sense is that these satellite phones were meant for Kashmir. There have been 4 arrests which have taken place. Now, these drones that we are talking about, these are small drones, but with the capability of lifting, we are told, between 3 to 4 kilos. That's enough to actually carry either a gun or components of a gun, which can then be assembled. Well, joining us now to look at the seriousness of this threat, Manaman Chinna, Assistant Editor of the Indian Express, joins us from Chandigarh. Air Commodore Ashwinder Singh Behel with us in the studio. Deshratan Nigam with me. Pramod Pawar, Strategic Affairs Expert. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. Amber Sen, former Special Secretary of RAW, also with us. Manaman, on the basis of what you've learned over the last several days, why is the threat this time around qualitatively different and more serious than what we've seen in the recent past ahead of the festive season?
Well, yes, Vishnu, as we reported in the Indian Express yesterday, in great detail, as greater detail as it could be done, keeping the specifics a bit hidden because it would not be in the national interest to leak out everything. What we have learnt is that there is very credible input from the external security agency, keeping the technical surveillance in mind. They have had very specific details about specific targets, these military installations across the region, some of which you have named in your report. These are the areas, these are the installations, Air Force stations, military stations which are being targeted, and the intelligence community believes that there is enough input available in order to put in an action plan to defend these areas.
Okay. Mr. Sen, let me come to you next. You know, every year ahead of the festive season, we do see alerts, a lot of alerts. On the basis of the recovery of this one letter, which seems to indicate that 30 cities could be targeted, airports could be targeted, and the fact that all security agencies, intelligence agencies are saying the same message, how would you gauge the extent of the alert, the seriousness of the threat?
Well, if we have got such a large number of reports, I would take it seriously. But anyway, such reports, you see, if they have any specific information, well and good. But sometimes I have found in my long years of experience that sometimes there is no specific information, so that makes it very difficult for the security agencies to counter such things. Yeah. But I would anyway. After this, I'll bring up another topic. Yeah.
No, go ahead. What is the point that you want to make, Mr. Sen?
I wanted to make the point about these drone attacks, both in Saudi Arabia and recently, not attack, but in Punjab, the dropping of arms and
yes,
mobile phones, etc.
Well, carry on. I'm listening, sir. Go ahead.
So that for me is very worrying. Yeah, I'm going. That for me is very worrying. I mean, you can easily blame these agencies who are guarding Punjab and the border, that how did these drones come in without being detected. But then keep in mind that even Saudi Arabia, which spends far more than us on their defense budget, and which has the protection of the US Army, they couldn't detect it. Only till it was the two airfields where oil fields were destroyed that they came to know of it. So I don't think we can blame our agencies that much, but it is worrying. Yes,
all right.
It is very worrying.
In fact, Air Commodore Ashminder Singh Bahl, how would you agree that when it comes to a small drone with a carrying capacity of between 3 and 4 kilos, let us just assume that it's as small as that, and it flies at treetop heights, the fact that they've been, according to the Punjab police, been able to do 8 sorties, even if you can't carry an entire weapon, you carry a part of a weapon which can then be assembled. You can carry a satellite phone or two that doesn't weigh anything. What sort of threat is this? How serious is it, and can we act? How does one attempt to take on this threat?
Firstly, moment you use air power in any of its forms, you have escalated the scale of conflict. Till now we are looking at low intensity conflict operations where a terror element comes in and creates a disturbed environment in our country. But now we are finding that there is employment of unmanned aerial vehicles, that means without pilots, small ones carrying a payload of 3 to 4 kg, coming at treetop or low heights and dropping in, because they have a low radar, IR signature and noise signature. It is very difficult to pick them up in time and take appropriate action. I'll discuss the appropriate action subsequently, but most important thing is that there is an escalation in the scale of conflict. And when you do that, you are doing it for 2 reasons. Air power is visible, so you are telling, yes, we are going to do it. And second is to enhance the speed of response. You want to drop the weapons, you want to drop them quickly, you want it to drop deep, and the time taken on ground when you cross the border is going to be more. So you are finding speed of response is fast, you are escalating the scale of conflict, you are going in deep. Now look at the strategic picture. Pakistan isolated, American bonhomie with India. You are finding Pakistan in FATF grey list, POK, Pakistan Prime Minister statement, within 10 days India may attack POK. And now you are finding large amount of intrusions being made, arms being dropped, terror elements being trained, up to 10,000 or so in the Pir Panjal range. That is their objective in the next few months. And pump in 60 you are talking of today, but they are trying to pump in thousands of terror elements
60 in the last 2 months. Manaman, is there a sense that you're getting that essentially India at this juncture is lying in wait, that the security agencies are talking to each other, they are alert to various threats, and then there is always the possibility of escalation, not done preemptively, but as an Indian reaction to a very serious security threat which faces not 1 or 2 but as many as 30 cities?
Well, yes, Vishnu, where one can gather while speaking to intelligence officials and military officials is that they are bracing for an impact. They are readying themselves, or rather they have already readied themselves for an eventuality which has been catered for as far as they are concerned in their operational tasks. But yes, there is an atmosphere in which it is expected that once anything happens on Indian soil, what we have been given to understand is that there would be a retaliation, a very specific retaliation, which may lead to climbing the escalation ladder. But then it all depends upon what kind of force is used by these attacking elements, what kind of attack is mounted on these Air Force stations or the military installations which are being talked about, or even if it comes it takes place or not, because these forces are also coming under a lot of fire.
Okay. Deshratan Nigam, is that your sense as well, that we are staring at the prospect of an escalation going up that escalatory curve? And obviously we don't want to instigate anything. That's never been the way we operate. But given the nature of the threat, 500 terrorists training either in terror training camps or on the launch pads, 60 have infiltrated in 2 months. The situation in Punjab with the Khalistan Liberation Force also reactivated to a certain extent, drones coming across right now, specific intelligence to airports, the name of particular terrorists, that we could be staring at the prospect of something horrific.
All these things are pointing toward one converging point, which General Bipin Rawat clearly articulated it, that we can give response can be more substantive than what you have seen in the past. So that's the only information that we have in public domain, and what I am going to tell you is I don't have the inside information of the government, but what is available in public domain. Now, this is the first time you see the terrorists have the airstrike capability, which earlier the sovereign government had. So this is something very dangerous. That is where the escalation can come from, and they cannot be detected, slow moving, low flying level. So that is the most difficult part of it, and therefore without detection they could have 8 to 10 sorties in India. So that is where government of India, in spite of this, despite of this, or in spite whatever you call it, was already testing anti-drone technology. Some trials were going on, but they were going on at its natural speed. After this they have to fast forward it, and that is where jamming communications or direct hitting it, finding miniature projectiles to hit it, because conventional missiles would be too costly to hit a $200
drone available on
Amazon. So therefore you need to have a different technology. Government of India has also put in place drone regulations 1.0. There is a drone policy, and there is a digital sky platform also, but they are not fully functional and operational.
Apply to the other side.
So the fact is, there are certain checks and balances which you can do within yourself, which are in your control. At the same time, develop a technology to bring them down.
Yeah.
So those are the things, and it has to be speeded up, especially in view of the attack in Saudi Arabia and this Punjab arms drop that has come.
Yeah, I know you want to reply to that. I want to go across to Mr. Pawar first. If you look at the nature of the threat, in the last few years we've seen terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir more adept at even coming across during the winter months using alpine training. That's a new addition. Communications, where they've used voice over internet protocol. Sophisticated military techniques at disguising, at not revealing their position based on the communications that they are carrying. The use of the internet insidiously, and now drone technology. How is the threat we are facing much more than what it was in the past, a jihadi with an AK-47? How is this perhaps the greatest terrorist threat that we've ever faced?
First of all, I disagree with this, that these kind of threats are concerned with 370 or Kashmir. It's separate organization, and it's a separate movement of Punjab, and it's not the first time. It's happening for a long time, and as you can recall, they all are crying for a 2020 agenda. But what will happen? We will use to discuss on about the Pakistan. We will start to discuss about the Hindu, Muslim, so and so. but we will never try to go to the roots of this particular problem. Why don't we discuss about the Canada, who is funding for them? Why don't we discuss about the China, who is providing them the drones? And before this happening, or before incident, today's incident, it's happened in Pathankot as earlier, but we all are unknown about that. It means they are capable to transfer their arms, their ammunition without drones. Why this time the people are using the drones and it can carry only 3 or 4 or 5 kg as told by Mr. Bahal and Mr. Nigam? Is it can be doubt upon it may be a torpedo for Kartarpur corridor, or it may be a acceleration between India and Pakistan.
Okay, so the actual reasons may not be the reasons which are most visible. How does one take on this sort of threat, given the landmass that we are talking about? We cannot deploy radars everywhere. Even if we have directed projectiles meant to take on these particular threats, which can be intercepted easily if you see them, we cannot have them in those numbers. So then what does one do?
See, there are two options to this. First is the hard kill option, which was being discussed earlier, that if you're going to use a multi-million-dollar missile against this, one of our fighter aircraft had recently shot down a UAV in the desert sector. But in war, the cost factor never comes in. More important is the target than the cost side towards it. Hard kill is an option which should be exercised if and when required. We come to the second part of the soft kill. The UAVs require a ground control station and they need a direct line of sight with that, or use satellite technology so that the message or the can be conveyed to the UAV. Now, this is where the soft kill option comes in, wherein you disrupt this link and the control of the UAV is lost from the ground control station or from another station, thereby implying that the Indian research organizations today are focusing towards the soft kill option. We are using DRDO and the IDEA company.
Where do you deploy this? We are talking about thousands of
exactly.
kilometers. That's the problem.
Exactly.
It may not be so much the technology or its availability, its actual deployability given the landmass.
And whether it is feasible to do so in the terrain which starts from mountainous and extends right down to the deserts.
Right, because jamming doesn't very often work in the mountains.
Exactly. Now, the most important point here is that is the reason why the drones are being used today to dispel multiple number of arms and ammunition at different locations deep inside the territory very quickly. And that could be perhaps one of the reasons why they are doing it. They want to make a quick impact. Now, I slightly disagree with the earlier discussion, if you give me one more minute, where we say that they may not do a 26/11 or anything similar to that. I feel that they would like to create a divide between Hindu Muslims, and they would like to create a divide between Hindus and Sikhs in Punjab. They would like to create as much of sectarian violence as possible all across the country, so that the international attention is again focused back to India as not being a stable state. Okay. And I think that may be one of the reasons that they are working towards. And this could lead to a war, so they are worried and they are already saying it.
In continuation to Mr. Bahl, I would like to provide you or discuss about the practical solutions. I don't know about the techniques of drone and so. Why don't we go for the offensive strategy? I hope, and not only hope, but I believe that we have all the pinpoints of inside the Pakistan, from where the people used to fly these, where the people used to train the Sikhs, where the people used to convert their Masiis and Hindus into Sikh. Why don't we go or use their own strategy?
How do we know we aren't doing that?
See what he's saying, why don't you use drones against drones, attack them undetected,
I think, if you ask me, it's a lot more than drones. I think this is a new phase, and obviously the best way to actually tackle this is through better intelligence.
Yes, exactly. That is the most important thing. If you can detect where their ground control stations are, which we can with the technology that we have today, and then position our defensive air defense assets on nearby those locations, I think that may be the solution.
I trust we have all the locations with us.
All right. I want to go for a last comment to Aman. Aman, this threat letter which targets the Prime Minister, the Home Minister and the National Security Advisor. It names somebody called Shamsher Wani, a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist. It was picked up by the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security in Lucknow. Can you share some details of this, because it's the same letter that targets 30 cities? Why is this one letter seen to be so critical?
Vishnu, as far as what our sources have told us, it is slightly more than depending upon just one letter. There is credible technical surveillance which has been put in place. The inputs from this technical surveillance have led the intelligence agencies to believe that there is, yes, a credible threat. This letter buttresses whatever has been given, whatever has been delivered by the technical surveillance. So it is not the only factor here which is involved in analyzing this threat perception. And so what eventually is happening right now is that various factors are coming into play.
And in terms of those sectors coming into play, what is the Punjab link over here? How is it linked to Kashmir? Because one of the accounts is that yes, 4 arrests in Punjab have been made, but the sat phones which have been collected were meant for Kashmir. So what is the link? Does it all link up to more terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, or is it part of a larger plan?
Well, see, Vishnu, there are these various theories which are floating right now. Nobody knows for sure where these weapons were headed for. Yes, there has been a seizure in Lakhanpur or maybe in Samba, where some AK-47 rifles were seized from a truck which was headed from Punjab into J&K. But that the alert about which we are talking, or rather the alert about which the Indian Express did a news report, it ranges from Rajasthan, from Sri Ganganagar district in Rajasthan, to Jammu and Kashmir.
Where there's Section 144 for the last several days.
Has been imposed in the border districts of Sri Ganganagar a few days back. Absolutely, absolutely. Though no such step has been taken in Punjab, but what the Punjab government is saying, or rather what the Punjab DGP is saying about where these weapons were headed for, that also has to be taken seriously. But as one of your speakers just now said, the Khalistan-Kashmir connection cannot be discounted. There has been constant effort. If anybody is monitoring the social media or anybody is monitoring these dharnas and protests taking place outside Indian High Commission in UK or at the Prime Minister Modi's rally in Houston, there has been an attempt by the Pakistani establishment to portray that the Khalistani separatists have been coming out in large numbers, holding Kashmiri flag, their so-called Azad Kashmir flags, and coming out in support of the Pakistani agenda. So yes, that could be an angle here. And of course, as another speaker pointed out, that the Khalistani element in isolation can also not be ruled out, particularly because the advantages which Pakistan thinks that it can accrue from the Kartarpur corridor.
All right. Well, it's a serious threat, and I think what Manaman was talking about earlier on, the possibility of this escalating if there is a terrorist attack, is very, very real. It's a very serious threat at this juncture, and let's hope that this is nipped in the bud. Thank you all very much.